What's up everybody, welcome to my channel. Today I'm gonna be working on this 98 Toyota 4Runner. So the customer has been complaining that it's leaking oil. He thinks it's the oil pan. I took a look at it and it looks like it's coming from the front seal or the oil pump gasket. So I'm gonna drive it inside of the shop and we're gonna confirm where the oil leak is coming from, and I'm gonna show you guys how to fix it. Okay, I got it on the lift. So before I raise it up, I'm gonna open the hood and I'm gonna check to see if there's anything leaking on the top. Then I'm gonna raise it up and I'm gonna check the bottom. Okay, so I'm gonna take a look at the valve cover gasket and it looks okay. It looks pretty dry. And I'm gonna take a look at the block and you can see the block underneath the intake. It looks okay. Now on the front of the where the water pump is and the oil pump, it is kind of wet. There's some oil and it looks like it's coming from the front and it's moving to the back. I mean, I'm gonna take a look at the back of the head. You can't really see it on the camera, but it's pretty dry. So now I'm gonna lift the truck and I'm gonna check the bottom. Okay, so taking a look at the truck from underneath, you can definitely tell that there's oil leaks. So there's like a big puddle over here. So I'm gonna remove both skid plates. There's one on the front and one on the back. And I'm gonna take a look at the motor. So here's my plate soaked in oil. And going back to the truck, if you look at it from the bottom, it's soaked in oil too. So you would think it's the oil pan because there's a lot of oil on the oil pan. But the problem is that when you have a leak coming from the top, it's gonna soak the oil pan. But in this case, it's not the oil pan. I already checked it and it's not. But before you assume it's something else, make sure, just look at everything. You know, look at the oil filter, the oil switch over there. There's the oil switch, and those two are dry. The other thing that could be is the valve cover gasket. But if you look at the block, it's dry from the top, so everything is dry. And my rear main, it looks like I mean, there's oil, but that's because it's coming from the front of the engine. But everything else, it's not that bad. So going back to the front, I know for a fact that my oil leak is coming from the oil pump. So it's coming down, and with the air and the wind, it'll throw all the oil to the back of the engine. That's why there's a bunch of oil going to the back. But the problem is the oil pump. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna replace the gasket for the oil pump. It's like a rubber gasket. It's like a kind of like an O-ring. And what happens is that they dry, they crack, and they start leaking oil. Same thing with the front seal and the rear main. But in this case, it's not the rear main. I am gonna replace the front seal because I'm gonna be there, might as well replace it. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove the pulley, the fan, the shroud, and a couple of other things. And I'm just gonna replace the gasket and the front seal. Now I'm gonna clean it up a little bit right now, and I'm gonna turn it on so you guys can see where the oil leak is coming from. All right guys, so you're able to see the oil leak. So there it is, and it's coming from the oil pump. You can see it soak right there. It's starting to soak, and it's gonna start dripping. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna turn it off. I just wanted to show you guys. I'm gonna turn it off and I'm gonna start taking everything apart. Okay, so I'm gonna start off by removing this vacuum hose. It goes from the canister to the intake. So it's this one right here. It only has 2 bolts, so I'm gonna remove those 2 bolts. Then I'm gonna remove this hose from the coolant reservoir tank. I'm just gonna remove the hose. Then I'm gonna remove this upper radiator hose. I think I'm gonna drain the coolant just a little bit so I can remove this and I don't make a mess. And then I gotta remove the shroud and the fan. Okay, so I already removed my vacuum hose. So here it is. I'm just gonna put it on the side. And this is my upper radiator hose. I drained the coolant just a little bit so I wouldn't make a mess, and I didn't make any mess, as you can see. So now I'm gonna remove the fan and I'm gonna remove the shroud. So the shroud has 4 bolts, 2 on top and 2 on the bottom. And the fan, it only has 4 bolts around it. So I'm gonna go ahead and take them off and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so I already have my shroud loose. But before I remove the fan, I already got the fan loose as well. I gotta remove the belts. So here's the tensioner for one of them. The other one is gonna be the one on the alternator. And then the other one is gonna be underneath the truck. So it's gonna be underneath the compressor. So I'm just gonna take them all off and I'm gonna remove the fan and the shroud. Okay, so I just removed the shroud, the fan, the pulley, and all 3 belts. Now I'm gonna remove the front pulley There's 4 bolts holding the front piece, and then 1 in the center holding the whole thing. So I think I'm gonna have to remove the radiator so I don't damage it, and then I'm gonna remove the pulley. I'm gonna remove the radiator. So here's the plug. I'm gonna completely drain it because that's not my only drain part of it. And then I'm gonna remove these 2 transmission hoses. I'm gonna put a pan so I can catch all the oil. Then I'm gonna remove this lower radiator hose. After that, there's 4 bolts holding the radiator. So I'm gonna take those off and I'm gonna completely remove the radiator. I put cardboard on the bottom so I don't make a mess. So I'm just gonna go and grab my oil pans and I'm gonna start disconnecting everything. Everything is disconnected and I put plugs everywhere so I don't make a mess. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove my radiator. Now I'm gonna remove the radiator. It has 4 bolts. You're supposed to remove the grill, but I'm not gonna do it because they kind of glue it on and I don't want to mess with it. So I'm just gonna do it through the grill. There's 1 bolt. There's the other one over here. You're able to see it. And then the other 2 are, one is right there, it's rusted. And then the other one's on this side. This one you can't really see it, but I'm able to see it myself. So I'm gonna be using this extension. It's flexible so I can move it around. It's gonna make my job easier. So now I'm gonna go ahead and remove the radiator. Okay, so there's my 4 bolts. So I already removed all 4 of them. I should be able to just pull it out now. If you guys drop a bolt, like the ones on the bottom, you could grab it with a magnet. So I just went from the top and then I grabbed the bolt because I dropped it. I dropped both of them on the bottom. Now I'm gonna go ahead and remove the radiator. Then I'm gonna move on to the pulley. There's my radiator. So now I'm gonna move on to remove the pulley. And I was able to fit my impact in here. I'm just gonna be careful with the condenser. So I'm gonna remove the pulley and I'm gonna move on to the oil pump. Okay, so I broke the bolt loose from the pulley and there's oil leaking. So I'm just gonna completely remove the pulley and take a look at it. I don't know why there's oil coming out. I don't know if it's normal or I don't think it's normal, but we'll take a look at it. There's my pulley and here's my oil pump. So I'm gonna be removing all these bolts around it. They're like screws, but you gotta be careful because if you're not careful, you could strip them. So the first thing I'm gonna do is clean all the surface. Then I'm gonna show you guys how to remove these screws or bolts. Okay, so I got my surface clean. I already cleaned it up. So what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna grab a bolt and I'm gonna grab a hammer or a mallet and I'm gonna hit every bolt to break it loose. So what happens is that they put Loctite, and if you just try to remove the screws by hand, most of the time you're gonna strip them. So if you grab a bolt and you hit it with a hammer on every screw, you're gonna break the Loctite loose and it's gonna be a lot easier to remove the bolts. So pretty much you're gonna grab a bolt, you're gonna put it on top of the oil pump bolt and you're gonna hit it with a hammer. You're gonna do this on every bolt on the oil pump and you're gonna break them loose. Then when you come with your screwdriver and try to remove all of them, it's gonna be a lot easier. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that right now, and then I'll show you guys once I take it off. I got most of them off, so make sure you use the right bit. I already broke a couple of them because I was using the wrong sizes. So this one's broken, and a couple of other ones that I was using. I did not strip any of them because I was being super careful not to, because once you strip them, it's a nightmare to get them off because of the limited space. If there was more space, then it's not a big deal, but this is how I do it. So I'm gonna leave the camera somewhere over here. I got most of them off already except for 2. So make sure you use the right size, because if you don't, you're gonna break it. But this is pretty much what I'm gonna use. I'm gonna use a bit with the adapter. I already broke a couple of them because I was using the wrong size. So make sure you don't strip them. I haven't stripped any. So this is what I'm gonna do. Like these ones, they're already loose. This one's loose. This one is loose already. So I already took these ones off. So pretty much this is what you do. You're gonna get your bit with your adapter. You're gonna put it on the bolt. You're gonna grab your hammer and you're just gonna hit it as hard as you can. If you need more room, you could just flip it and then just hit it hard. And of course, you're gonna hold the bit and adapter with your other hand, and that's how I got him off. Okay, so I already removed all the bolts. So as you can see, all of them are off. So now I'm gonna remove the pump. Before you remove the pump, be careful because it has the gears inside and you have to put them on the way they come off. So make sure you don't drop them and make sure they stay in place. Okay, so I'm ready to remove the pump. So I started by prying it right here where the timing marks are, and then I moved my way to the right hand side, and then I moved my way to the left, and I already got it off. So on this one, you don't have to worry about the gears because they don't come off. I'm gonna go ahead and remove it. So there it is. Here's the cover, and as you can see, there's a gasket and it's broken. That's why it was leaking. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that off and I'm gonna replace it. Okay, so here's the other piece of the gasket, and I'm also gonna replace the front seal because I'm already there, might as well. I tried to remove the gasket in one piece, but because of the heat, I mean, it's no good anymore and it's breaking in pieces. So I'm gonna clean everything. I'm gonna go ahead, clean my surface. I'm gonna clean my cover. I'm gonna get a new gasket and I'm gonna put everything back together. So this is the old seal. I already took it off. I'm gonna install the new one right now. This is the new one, and this is a new gasket. I already cleaned my cover. So I'm gonna install the seal. I'm gonna clean the pump on the engine, and I'm just gonna install everything back together. So I got my cover ready. I already installed my seal. I already put grease around it. This is the grease I'm using, and this is the Loctite I'm gonna use. So I had to put grease to hold the gasket because it kept on falling off. There's nothing wrong when you use grease to hold the gasket. It'll still work, it'll still seal, no problem. I've done it in the past. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the cover on. I'm gonna start installing everything back. So I just installed my pulley, it's already bolted on. Next, it's gonna be the radiator, the pulley, the fan, and the belts. And that's gonna be pretty much it. I just finished installing the radiator. I connected all of the hoses. So now I'm gonna install my shroud, fan, and the belts. I'm almost done. I already put my belts. All the belts are on. My shroud, my radiator, everything's pretty much connected. The last thing I have to do is connect the reservoir hose, my vacuum line, and my upper radiator hose. And that's gonna be it. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Then I'm gonna turn it on and I'm gonna make sure it doesn't leak anymore. Okay, so everything's back on. I already put the antifreeze. So I'm gonna turn it on and I'm gonna let it bleed. While it bleeds the air out, I'm gonna check underneath, make sure it doesn't leak anymore. Then I'm gonna clean the skid plate and I'm gonna throw it back on. So it's been running for a while and I don't see any oil leaks anymore. So it's pretty dry. The only thing I'm able to see is the grease that I applied to the gasket, but anything other than that, I don't see any more leaks. So I'm gonna throw the skid plate back on. First, I'm gonna clean it. I'm gonna throw it back on and I'm gonna take it for a drive. That's it. All I gotta do is drive it and make sure it doesn't leak any more oil. Okay, I'm just gonna drive it around the block just to make sure it doesn't leak anymore. I just took it for a quick drive. Now I'm gonna check underneath, make sure it's not leaking any more oil. So it looks like it's not leaking any more oil. That's gonna be it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Don't forget to subscribe and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.